In the 1940s, 1950s, radio was how America was entertained. Television was not widely distributed at that point. Families would gather around the drama, the series, like they gather around Netflix now. And there were the Lone Ranger and Tonto, Hi-Ho Silver! And so it was drama on the radio. One of the radio shows was a show on WGN radio in Chicago, and it was Sky King. Now, if you keep in mind, this is the 40s, airplanes were still a big deal. It was a cutting-edge technology to fly still. And Sky King was this guy with a great baritone voice. Of course, he was a radio voice. And he would fly in whatever the drama was, and he was the guy that would save the day, and so on. And the voice behind Sky King was a guy named Earl Nightingale. And Earl pretty quickly realized there was no money in radio, and he bought an insurance business, a general agency. And every Monday morning, he would have a sales meeting and pump up his sales guys and send them out to sell insurance. And he was very, very successful at it, all the way up into the late 50s. And one of the things Earl loved more than motivational speaking or jacking up his sales guys and getting them ready to go out and sell insurance was he loved to fish. And Earl decided he was going on a fishing trip in Canada. Well, his sales manager came to him and he said, you understand that the 2 weeks that you're gone, sales are going to go down, because when you get these guys wired up on Monday morning, they're ready to go attack the world, and they go out there and make sales without you here to do the pump up, the halftime speech for the football coach. They're not going to do their thing, man, and sales are going to go down. Well, Earl thought, well, that's not good, but I'm going fishing, so I got to figure this out. So he goes back to his old radio days and decides he's going to record a talk, and he goes into the studio and records a talk just for the 2-week vacation. And the way you did a recording in those days in a studio was not tape, it was on an acetone record. It was a real floppy, real thin looking record. Any of you old enough to remember getting a record on the back of your cereal box, that kind of a thing? It was a little thin, flimsy record. It was meant to play 3 or 4 times and 5 times and then not meant to work after that. It didn't have a long shelf life. It was a short recording. And he went in and he recorded a 33-minute talk. They played it, sales went up while he was gone. They played it the next week, sales went up again while he was gone. He came back. By the time he had gotten back, everyone who sold anything in the entire Chicago area was abuzz wanting a copy of this talk. He ended up recording the talk formally, pressing records, and selling the records. And as best we can determine in research that we've done in the broadcast world, secular or church, this is one of the records that sold beginning in 1959. This is the first recorded talk, not music, but the first talk of any kind, sermon or otherwise, to sell 1 million copies. The talk was called The Strangest Secret. And in it, he talks about the strangest secret is simply that you become what you think about. Now, this is a biblical truth. In Proverbs, it says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, a man becomes what he thinks about all day long. It turns out that what we focus on, what we concentrate on, what we think about, we tend to gravitate towards, move towards, become that. And if it's good or bad, we're going to be pulled magnetically in the direction of the things we think about. You become what you think about is the strangest secret. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Henry Ford once said, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Now, this was proven several years ago, and this is another old story that I just love, and it was proven in this instance. Now, any of you remember the book or the movie Unbroken about Louis Zamperini? He was a track star, and he goes into World War II and gets in a Japanese concentration camp, and finally gets out later. It's the story of his whole life. It's a wonderful story, big old long book, Unbroken. The book's better than the movie usually is, right? And so Louis ran in the Berlin Olympics with the Nazis doing this. Hitler is coming into power. And he was a miler. He was a kid from California. And in the Berlin Olympics, Louis ran the mile in 4 minutes and 21 seconds and just barely missed a medal. The miler that year was a little over 4 minutes. That was 1936. By 1954, no one had broken the 4-minute mile. No one. A guy did a 4 minute and 1 second, and it stood for 9 years. It was widely thought and taught that the human body, the physiological condition of the human body, it was impossible for anyone to train enough to go fast enough for the human body to cross a mile in under 4 minutes. If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. You become what you think about. And one doctor even prophesied that if someone actually did run a mile in under 4 minutes, that their heart would explode and they would die right there. Until 1954. Roger Bannister, famously, is the first human being, and that's a picture of him, to break the 4-minute mile. 3 minutes and 59 seconds. The record lasted 46 days. 22 people broke the 4-minute mile within the next 6 years. I've told this story and I love it, so much so that the watch that was used by the old guy sitting there in the trench coat as Bannister went across the line went up for sale on Sotheby's auction house in London. Well, apparently I've got too much money because I decided I needed that watch. What a great story and what a great thing to have in my safe for my kids to fight over after I die. So I go to bidding on this watch. I set myself the limit of $10,000, and I was going to go no more than $10,000 to buy this world-class keepsake. I quit bidding at $38,000. I bought this one on eBay for $4. Okay, but if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Power of intentionality. I'm going to be intentional about my life. I'm going to be intentional about my spiritual walk. I'm going to be intentional about the dimensions and the compartments and the departments of my life. You know, no one accidentally wins. You don't interview the guy after the Super Bowl and the little reporter runs over to the athlete and goes, "How did you just win the World Series, the Super Bowl?" They never say, "I don't know, I just got off the bus." Now, I've been training since I was 6 years old. It's an intentional act to win. The power of intentionality goes with the power of belief and what we in our Christian walk call faith, what we believe. And we just did 2 years ago at Ramsey the largest study of millionaires ever done in North America. We studied 10,167 millionaires, in-depth, airtight research, because we knew people wouldn't like the results. Because we kind of knew some of the things we were going to find. And we knew that some people wouldn't like it. So we were really careful. We had outside research firm help us with the details and the control groups and the processes. If you know anything about research, it's a very detailed thing to do it properly and not get confirmation bias and these kinds of things in there. Detailed thing. Here's the interesting thing. If you get somebody to say something, if like 60% of the people say something in a group like that, that's called statistically significant, right? Over half of them say this. 97% of the millionaires that we talk to, when we ask them, can you become a millionaire today? And when you first started, did you believe you could become a millionaire? 97% said yes. If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. When we interviewed the general public that weren't millionaires, do you think you can become a millionaire? 69%. Still a lot, but significantly less than 97% said that they thought they could. You can do this. It's called hope. Hope deferred makes the heart sick. Be not conformed to this world. Don't be like them, but be transformed. How? Displacement, the renewing of your mind. New things coming in. And it creates a new you. A whole new way of looking at things. Sharon and I have been married almost 40 years. I'm really glad, and she's really glad she ain't married to the guy she married. He's not perfect, but he's a whole lot better than that idiot she married 40 years ago. Displacement. I'm getting better. I'm getting better. Give me 40 more, I'll probably get it down. So what God wants for you is what I want for you.